Hi, everyone. We're going to give everyone a minute or so to join. And actually, it's 11, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, welcome to another edition of BrightGage's User Showcase webinar. It's a series where we highlight all of the great work done by our partners. And today we'll be showcasing Empower Action from data with comprehensive dashboards. We'll be featuring the work done by Jay Strickland and his team at Strategic Solutions. I'm Dominique Hawley, a member of the Partner Success team and your host for today. So feel free to reach out throughout the webinar with any questions or comments that you might have. I'll do my best to answer them as we move along. I'd also like to take a moment to personally welcome our speaker, Jay Strickland, who's the principal at Strategic Solutions. We also have Ken Gleason on the line as well from Strategic Solutions too, who will be adding as well. They're both on mute right now, but don't worry, they'll be introducing themselves in a few minutes. Next, we'll go over what we have planned for today. So we'll take a moment to look at the IT Nation events coming up. We'll check out our recently added templates, and then I'll pass things over to Jay and Ken for a more formal introduction from them, and they'll share their comprehensive dashboards and reports. We'll also leave time at the end for a Q&A, but if you guys do have questions, feel free to drop them in that questions or chat. Now, before we get started, I do want to share that all of our dashboards and reports you see here today have company and employee names blurred, as well as some metrics and filters added to the dashboards in an effort to maintain privacy. If you're ever interested in recreating any of the metrics you see using your own data, please feel free to reach out to your partner success manager. If you're not sure who that is, just shoot an email over to success@brightgage.com and we'll get you connected. So on to our IT Nation events. We have IT Nation Secure coming up. It's the must-attend cybersecurity conference for TSPs. And just before that, we also have Automation Nation coming up on June 3rd. And also on June 3rd, we have IT Nation Grow. So these are really great events and a great learning opportunity and a chance to connect with other partners too. Next, we'll touch on our recently added templates. We have our partner shared dashboard and report templates page. It houses all of our featured templates. This includes templates of what other partners have created and templates that have been highlighted in our user showcase webinars. If you're ever interested in how other partners are utilizing their BrightGage account, come check out this page or subscribe to our blog. The most recently added template is our executive business review from our February user showcase webinar. We'd also love to hear which metrics from today's presentation that you'd like to see on a template like this one. So feel free to give us your feedback. You can always send us a message during the webinar. You can email us at success@brightgage.com or fill out the post-webinar survey. This webinar will also be recorded and shared with you all within the next few business days. The email is going to come directly from GoToWebinar, and we'll upload it to our webinars page as well. Our webinars page is where you'll find a library of all of our past webinars, and that also includes trainings and other user showcase webinars. And at this point, I'm going to pass things over to Jay and Ken, and they'll introduce themselves and share how they're utilizing BrightGage. So give me one moment. And Jay, let me know if you have presenter access. And we'll give you a moment to hop on that slide.
And Jay, while you're pulling that up, Andy says, hello, long time no talk.
think by now I would have learned to unmute the mic before starting something like this. But anyway, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Yeah. My slide. Are you seeing my shared slide?
Yes,
Feel
we
like
are. Yeah.
good. Okay. So anyway, thank you guys. I really appreciate you inviting us, Dominica. It's a great opportunity for us to share just a little bit about what we've been doing with Brightgauge for a long, long time. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years that we've been using Brightgauge, and really from day one, it was such an integral part of our business. I can't imagine ever not using it. It's hard to think about how we did business beforehand. But anyway, we're just going to take a little bit of time to share with you some of the things that we do here uniquely at Strategic Solutions. So I also want to introduce one of my team members that's on the phone with us today. Ken Gleason is really the architect behind most of our boards and gauges that we use here. So he's going to be available for answering any kind of questions that go beyond my technical depth. But just to give you a little bit of background on Strategic Solutions, we're an MSP. We've been in business for 20 years, and we're really very vertically focused on the healthcare space. And by that, I mean like 91% of our business is in healthcare. So we are very strategically oriented on healthcare and really go pretty deep into the business. So Brightgauge has been a huge help for that for all the years that we've been using it. But and then more recently, Strategic Solutions has entered into an equity partnership with New Charter Technologies. So we're part of a much larger company now, 1,100 employees, 24 MSPs across the country together, kind of independently operating as separate operating companies, but also collaborating on a lot of data and things like that. So again, Brightgauge has been a huge help there. So let me just step forward a little bit. Some of the things that I tweaked the agenda order a little bit after Dominique sent it over, just to kind of change the order of some of the slides. But I thought we'd talk to you a little bit about our our project team and how we manage our projects. While we're 80% managed services and recurring revenue, and that's really the engine behind our business. Professional services at times seems to be the strategic part of our business, and really a lot of times what affects our overall long-term client reputation. So where operations and end user support and managed services really blocking and tackling on a day-to-day basis. The project team is what is handling all of the strategic efforts for our clients. So we'll talk about both of those teams a little bit. Then I want to dive into a little bit more detail in this time company 30-day report that shows kind of one of the unique ways that we look at our clients and determine how we're doing for them over time. And then we've got a handful of other boards that we're going to highlight in here that just give us some metrics about our weekly operations reports on time, and then our sales, how our sales group is doing, how we're doing towards business growth, and then finally just overall utilization for performance basis. We do a semi-annual scorecard for all of our employees that is very metric driven, and so a lot of every 6 months we pull statistics that go into that scorecard that help people understand how they're doing and also give them some bonuses for the year, twice a year. So as Dominique mentioned, the numbers in here are in some way redacted, and then also I want to give you the other caveat that we were right in the middle of a on-premise ConnectWise managed to a cloud-based ConnectWise PSA migration. So there's a few numbers that are just kind of jacked up a little bit. So I'll mention this as we go through it as well. But if there are any questions, stop us at any point. I'd like for this to be as interactive as possible, and both Ken and I are happy to take any kind of questions you guys might have. All right, so moving into the project dashboard. We're very much centered on the Entrepreneur Operating System, if you're familiar with that, or EOS. And so our project team, or all of the departments in our company, have a weekly level 10 EOS meeting. And so in that meeting, there's certainly weekly scorecards that get scored. So starting off with the project team, this is typically what they look at in their early Monday morning meeting that starts the week off. So they're looking this kind of reflects some of the things that we've discovered as issues over time and that we've reflected in here. So right now, making sure that everybody has their timesheets on time, which seems like a perpetual challenge for MSPs. No matter how mature you are, there's always challenges with timesheets, but we always have this block here at the beginning that shows anybody that's past due on timesheet, so we can quickly get that caught up. This next block here shows us projects that are past their end date. So this number is definitely out of whack here, but it at least gives you an idea of what we're looking at. We're just looking at, we manage all our projects in ConnectWise. So anytime one is exceeding the anticipated end date for it, it pops up on here as a numerical value. And then we also look at the total number of open projects, which is also a little higher than what we usually have. So again, I think that number's wrong, but it does give us an idea of what our, just the number of projects that our team is facing on a regular basis. And then more specifically, the number of projects, and we'll drill into this to see which projects are actually coming up this week that we're hoping to get wrapped up. Professional services for the project team are super important from a financial standpoint, right? I mean, the team is all full-time equivalents, and so really the work that they do drops almost to the bottom line as far as profitability goes. So making sure that they're utilized at the right rate and creating billable hours is super important. So we have a screen here that counts billable hours for the previous week and measures that. We also do stand-up meetings with the project team on a twice a week, or 2 times additionally in the week on Wednesdays and Fridays. And in that, they look at a red, yellow, green for each person to determine whether on a daily basis they're hitting their goal for professional billable hours. Down at the bottom, we have just a representation of the project hours that are scheduled for particular projects. In this case, there are kind of 3 projects that are scheduled for the week when this screenshot was grabbed that show how many hours are scheduled for the week. And this has really been an effort for us to try and get, we know that when we schedule project work in advance, it becomes much more manageable and it's much more efficient and delivered on time. So getting these numbers, this is probably pulled at an early time because these numbers seem a little bit low, but the goal is to try and get to an aggregate number of scheduled hours for the week that's at least 20 hours for the week in advance of the week. And then we also kind of look retrospectively at the week before to see what hours we actually got accomplished the previous week. And so this is right on target for us for about the 60 or 70 hours a week. And then we also have a team that we've added that helps the project team. We call them infrastructure specialists. So these are individuals that are typically more operationally focused, but that are subject matter experts in particular areas. In our case, we have a security infrastructure specialist and a virtualization infrastructure specialist. We have an empty spot for a network infrastructure specialist, but those people on those teams also help out with projects. So we represent how much they've contributed to project efforts from the previous week as well. So any questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a question for you. How many project managers do you have, and do they do any of the tech work themselves? If you have project techs, are they dedicated to projects or shared with ops?
Yeah, so great question. As much as possible, our project team tries to stay focused on projects. They do get pulled as escalation points at times for certain operational things, and especially around our hosted data center, because they tend to have higher skill sets in a lot of cases, but they are, for the most part, trying to stay dedicated as they can to projects. There are 4 of them four project engineers that are dedicated to doing projects. And then, as I mentioned, 2 infrastructure specialists that help them out as well. And then there are times that other people on our operations support team get kind of pulled in for projects as well. So we have a blurry line between the groups. There are times that we encourage kind of efforts to bring people across. I think it helps all the groups understand what each other are doing. But generally, we're shooting for 4 dedicated project engineers and 2 infrastructure specialists on this board. And I guess your other question was who manages the project. So at this point, our project engineers have all been through some project management training, so they are technical in nature, but they are self-managing their projects.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Also, another one that has come in is do all employees see each other's billable time metrics?
Um, Ken, you might be able to answer that for me. I know within each team they do. Ken, do you know if we have anything globally that looks at billable metrics? I don't think we do. But certainly within each team we do. So, as I mentioned, this board right here that shows billable hours for each team member, the team members are blanked out, but their names would be right here in this column. The team looks at this on a weekly basis. So, they're all kind of holding each other accountable to some extent and aware of that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we do have transparency on our figures. We've got everybody has the ability to go in and check their performance on the 6-month running scorecard sheet that we use. So yeah, we do have transparency like that.
Okay, great. Yeah. Any other questions on this?
You can continue.
Okay, great. Well, the next slide is just a little bit more detailed. It's a little bit it's more of a person by person breakdown of where their hours went. So if you can imagine the team members' names over here in the left-hand column, and then you can see that again, these numbers are probably very early in the week and probably also a little bit screwed up by the migration that was going on at the time. But they're usually not a whole lot of client service hours that our project team gets pulled into. Usually most of their time's in the project hours space. So a lot of times we have a lot of internal projects going on, so we separate those out because they're, obviously not really billable hours, but they are strategic hours for moving our company forward. We have a column for when they get involved in knock support, and then personal holiday time as well. So we kind of so this is a little bit more clear breakdown on where each member's time went for a particular week. And I'm sorry. So this is the kind of the current week, and this is the previous week down here. So you get a 2-week review of that. I think that's all pretty straightforward. But any questions on any of that?
Let's see. For agent hours, is that split by a work type?
So on this, the work type goes into figuring out which column this stuff is going in, but we don't break it down exactly by work type. We just use it to figure out which of these categories that it falls into.
Awesome. Thank you. Another one, how many boards do you usually run?
So I forgot to mention that in the front of this, but Ken is amazing. I mean, I was looking at it over the time that we've been using BrightGauge. We have like over 100 boards and over 100 reports that we do, customized reports that we do, and like over 1,000 gauges that we've developed over time. But Ken, what would you say if you had to guess on a consistent basis how many of the boards we're actually using on a regular basis across the company?
Let's see. We got operations board and the project board are pretty much in daily use. We're doing the time 30-day and time 30-day 6-month per company to keep an eye on who's running hot on hours. I've been developing a RMM patch compliance report dashboard since we've moved over to that system. I don't know. At least a half a dozen that are, being touched on a daily basis. We're using out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to guess about 10 that happen daily or weekly, and then about another 10 that are monthly boards. So of the 100 or so that we've built over time, about 20 are probably active right now, if that makes sense. And then there's a handful of boards that are specifically client facing. We do a lot of co-managed services with clients where we have clients that are actually participating in BrightGauge and looking at boards specifically for their company. So there's those as well. But from an internal standpoint, there's probably about 20.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, we do have dashboards built out for our Streamline IT partners as well, so that they have the visibility into what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's been a big boom. I mean, every time we talk to a client about building a dashboard for them, they're blown away. They haven't ever seen another MSP that's doing that. So it's seems like a differentiator.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. So just another view of project time again. This is you can kind of tell we tend to get distracted or have a lot of stuff going on Mondays, and by Friday we're starting to wrap up and get a little bit more in the way of project hours done. Seems to be the same case across the months, but this just gives us a kind of a daily representation of how many hours we're spending towards project work in the project team and then the infrastructure specialist team as well. And then we drop down here, and these don't pay attention to the names here because these are really US rocks, but typically you have the client facing project names down here and kind of ranked in order of the hours that we're spending on them. So you know which projects are keeping us the busiest for both the project team and the infrastructure specialist team. So, and then, we also try to think about always getting a little bit better each time, right? The continuous quality improvement or 1% better each day type of approach. And so our project team also kind of looks back at what things have not gone well over time. So this board kind of represents some things that they're trying to keep a better eye on. Like for example, we had issues in place before where some of our scheduled reboots got suppressed for work that was going on, and then those suppressions stayed in place and never got removed. So we quickly created Ken helped us create a gauge here so we can see when a reboot has been suppressed, and our project team takes a look at that and determines whether that's still valid or it needs to be removed. Same thing along those lines are, there are times that we've had some misses on some of our latter steps in a project. A project gets closed early and maybe, updates to the billing department haven't happened on like they should have. So we also track which projects closed this month, so we can go back and quickly do a quick review of which ones, just to make sure that those last few steps didn't get shortcut in any way. And of course, also knowing what's opened, what new projects have opened this month. These are kind of the three things that our team is focusing on right now to try and get a little better at project management. And this changes over time. It's a very dynamic board. So I think the point is that BrightGauge is able to allows us to quickly figure out where there's an issue, create a gauge for it, bring visibility forward, and fix the issue. Any questions?
Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, someone asked on your servers with suppressed reboots where the comments are coming from. That's probably a specific field. So if you guys want to take a look at it with your partner success manager, I'd recommend that too. But do you guys off the top of your head know where that field is coming from for comments?
I don't. Ken, I'm hoping you might.
Yeah, I think that might have been a text field that we put in there. Let me see if I can pull it up and give you a better answer than that in a moment, okay?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I know. I pushed the team to say, let's never suppress a reboot unless we state why and how long the suppression should last. So I think that's, as Ken mentioned, that's probably a required question that we put into the process somehow, but I'll let him answer that.
Awesome. So we'll let him check that, but if you want, you can continue.
Yeah, sure. So switching over to our operations team, which is kind of what we called it historically. I think our technical name for it is end user support team. But they, these are the people that just do such an amazing job on a day-to-day basis and keep all the trains on the track and make sure that that we just have very, very speedy, very amazing customer support. They operate 24/7. We have staff literally 24/7. And and because of our healthcare clients, and they just do an amazing job. So I want to share a couple of things that they look at. This is a portion of our board that's on the wall here in the office, and it's looked at constantly every day by the whole team. There's even audible alerts for some of these things like this service requests that are unassigned. There's a little bell there, so there's actually an audible alert that goes off when one pops up there for that. And our team, I didn't realize this until we started looking at this, but our team, um, you know, ConnectWise isn't even the first place they look for things. BrightGauge is the first thing they look at during the day, know where things are, and they start here. When they want to work tickets, they're going to drill into a BrightGauge board and click on a link to get to the ticket that they need to work. So it really has become the center of our operations team's universe. So CSAT, of course, is really big. Smileback, another ConnectWise product, is what we use and have used for a long time. So it's a big part of what we do. Not so much because we're looking. This number is not. We're not looking for a 98 point something percent score in this. What we're looking for is changes in this over time. And really what we've done is built a workflow that whenever a neutral or a negative Smileback response comes back on any ticket, our leadership team is calling within an hour to try and ask what the issue was. Is there anything we can fix to improve that? And that's been huge for us. The total number of tickets that we have open at one time, I think this number is a little higher than what it usually is because of the migration that was going on at the time. But this is a big factor for our teams. They know, given the number of people that are in the office, the season of the year, things like that, what our ticket count should be, when it's too high or when it's too low or anything like that. And then more critically, if there's a service request that's not assigned yet, we need to get that done as quickly as possible so it doesn't languish out there. Whenever a client replies to a ticket and puts it back into awaiting our status, then we need to jump on that as quickly as possible. So these are all kind of actionable things. We have an algorithm for determining if we consider a ticket to have been stale. If it hasn't gotten an update, and I think it's 3 days, then we consider it stale. And the only challenge is that this is probably taken on a Monday, because what happens is when we count days, I think in BrightGauge we can only count calendar days. Maybe it's an enhancement request for BrightGauge. It'd be nice to count business days, because what happens is over the course of the weekend, a bunch of tickets go stale and they've only been untouched for one business day. But anyway, that's something we focus in on a lot. And then we also separate out the tickets that have been escalated to the engineering team or to our account manager team that have gone stale as well, because we try to make sure that the operations team maintains ownership for those tickets, even if they've been escalated somewhere else. So they want to know if they're not being moved forward in that sense. And then I don't know whether others do this or not, but we do this thing called a kill ratio, which is number of closed tickets over top of number of open tickets. So you look at that fraction, and obviously we like to try and get as close to 100% as possible, so that every time a ticket opens, we close it. But that gives us a feel for whether we're getting a surge or whether we're catching up and where we are in that process. Any questions about any of that?
It looks like you answered all of their questions as you were talking through the gauge.
Good. Yeah. I know that some of the stuff is not the most exciting things, but hopefully it helps you see our perspective on things. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I had a chance to go back and recheck that suppressed reboot gauge.
Oh yeah, right.
We hadn't really looked at that in about 4 or 5 years. This was a custom data set that we built that just pulls a very small set of variables back out of Automate. The comment is an extra data field that we're grabbing from. But everything that comes back in that data set for that query is the client name, the comments from the extra data field, the computer name, the computer ID, and the reboot policy, which is what we're keying off of to just show the suppressed reboot ones.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thanks, Kim. So, back to operations for a minute. We this is the other half of that board that's on the wall here on our screen, on the screen on our wall here in the office that we look at constantly. Offline servers obviously is a big deal. So whenever something comes up in LabTech, or now this should be switching to ConnectOS RMM, then we'll know if I guess we have one for each because we were kind of in transition at the time. So offline servers that are being reported by LabTech and offline servers that be reported by RMM. So at some point we'll remove this once we fully decommission LabTech. I think this weekend actually. So certainly any ticket that we've escalated to what we call a P1 or priority 1 status, that's anything that's site down, VIP ticket, or anything that a client reports as being a high severity issue. So we count those number of tickets here. We have a whole incident management process and protocol that we follow internally. We also hit a little alarm bell here so that you hear it on the board when something pops up on here. Network alerts, we historically used Site 24/7 for network management. We're kind of shifting towards Alvik as a result of our move towards ConnectOS RMM. So we get alerts on any kind of network down emergency in any of our client environments. And we also have a incident response management system protocol that we manage for any kind of security events. So we measure those tickets anytime that happens and let everybody know that there's an incident going on. Fortunately, that's, knock on wood, 0 a lot of times. Disk-based low, this is just what it sounds like. We just alert anytime that there's a server that has low space, and then respond to that, manage it actively. But we want to make sure that we're aware of when that happens, and so getting on the wall of that is important. We use Huntress Labs MDR, or I guess extended detection response system. So or for threat hunting. So we want to know anytime that something comes up there. Huntress has been incredibly reliable and a great partner for us. So this is really a key to our security team's response to anything. And historically, Data has been a partner of ours for backup and disaster recovery. We're actually in the process of switching this to Axient, but this gives us an idea of any kind of Data devices that are offline. And then over here on the right, you just get a breakdown of the types of tickets and how they're assigned to individual users. So unfortunately, the names and the legend are all blacked out here, but you can imagine that each one of these stacked bars are for each of the people in the operations team, and a breakdown of what type of tickets they have. So you can see that I'm guessing that's maybe, what do you think, DJ Ken or something like that? Something that's got way too many tickets.
That's it. Yeah, that's gonna be DJ, our team lead. Yeah, and the color coding is by the current status of the ticket.
Oh, it's
Wait,
status.
customer, yeah, by status rather than type.
Okay, yeah, that probably makes more sense. So thank you. So any questions about that? Similar to what we do.
You're good.
Okay, great. So similar to what we do for the project team, we also look at a little bit more detailed breakdown of that stuff. Here you can see this is kind of where our kill ratio comes from, the number of open and closed tickets for each of the days over the course of the last week. So you get an idea for whether if there's days we were falling behind, like here we got a lot more open than closed, and then we play a little bit catch up on some other days like here. So that's good. And then our operations team really gets focused on these things, and what's it called, kind of trifecta, where if you've got one of our agents that's at the top of this stacked list for the most number of positive smiley faces back from the CSAT, most number of tickets closed, and the most number of billable hours, if they're at the top of the list, I think you get free lunch for the day or something like that, or a day off, or what, I don't know what it is.
It's the trifecta contest, and our ops manager will give a technician a half day off paid if we manage to hold all three for. I think you got to hold it for at least 2 hours during the day.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a little bit of gamification and positive competitiveness within the team. So, any questions about any of that? So this is just more of a longitudinal look at the tickets by age and by status, so we can start to see if there's anything going on with there's a little bit of a build up here of tickets that are between 4 and 8 days ago, and and uh, and you can kind of start to see what the status is. So a bunch of them are waiting on client there, and that starts to give us a feel for what might be going on with our operations team. And any questions about any of that? Obviously, this stretches way back, so there's a handful of tickets that are out there that are probably shouldn't be tickets, but more projects or something like that because they're really long term.
Yeah, a question that's come in is it says, I heard Jay mention that there are some gauges up on screens in the office. What are the viewing cadences for the other dashboard? Is there a defined reviewing process for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, we were just talking about this yesterday. We're gonna redesign part of the office. We got a couple new printers, and so there's a section in the office that's gonna get redone. And I think we're gonna expand the number of screens to get more of these things literally on the wall, viewable 100% of the time. But for right now, the ones that I showed you for the operations team, we go back here. This one and this one are the main things that are right out in front of everybody daily on a daily basis. There are some other screens that we have for like our network management that's up on the wall, and our Azure dashboard and things like that. But a lot of these other boards that we're talking about are really used in the course of team meetings on a regular basis. So we'll pull it up for the team meeting, but it may not be in front of them all the time. Now, our operations team is pulling up some of these boards and has it on one of their 5 or 6 monitors that some of these people have on their desk and are looking at it continuously. So individually, some of these are used all the time, but collectively on the wall, it's really right now it's these two, and but soon to be more probably. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Um, so just a quick look at hours by technician for the operations team. And this is kind of hard to read with all the redactions on it, but basically, we're just looking at agent or person by person how they're doing on the tickets they've closed, and the hours for each of them as well. I think again, because of the migration, we don't have all the data here, but this is just a more detailed look at tickets or hours and then tickets. So, Ken, I'm not sure where we're using this. Maybe but I think it's just a look at how closely our kill ratio, if you want to call it that, is tracking closed tickets to open tickets over time. Just Scott.
Yes, this is very this is just a stretched out version of the running 2-week ticket volume where we're looking at 30 days in a slightly different format, line instead of bar, but essentially just tracking our volume.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit just because I think we're getting short on time, I guess. So we're also real focused on making sure that we have configurations attached to every service ticket that we can to make sure that we're being able to associate hotspot problems with particular workstations or servers in the environment. So we're watching, the operations team is watching to see if there's any kind of tickets that don't have configurations matched to them, and then watching for any tickets that have taken more than 3 hours to complete, because we want to consider at least escalation of some sort if a ticket's taken more than 3 hours. And then we also manage our change control system through tickets. So when somebody puts in a ticket that's going to have a material change on a client environment, we ask them to put it into a change requested status that goes out to the rest of the team. We're looking for 2 people to come back with positive affirmative approvals on that change before it actually gets scheduled and gets done. So once it's approved and scheduled, then we track it on here so that the whole team knows what changes are coming up in the next 7 days, and then also what changes were made in the last 7 days, so that if a problem occurs, we can quickly correlate that back to a change that was made. So our operations team is also, of course, patching or tracking patching very closely, and wants to know what's happened there so that they can correlate any kind of patch with a potential issue that might be occurring somewhere, or the lack of a patch if it's not happening. And the Ken, this litter counter, is that I assume is tickets that are not relevant or need to be cleaned up?
Actually, that was out of an effort to make a more stripped down version of one of our data sets that was getting hung up. And so this was just kind of being used against the normal count. We were having some issues with getting the sync to complete on a regular basis. So we stripped out a bunch of stuff that was extraneous for the purposes of some gauges.
Got it. Thank you. And then down here at the bottom is just a list of any tickets that we opened because of a failure in patching. So fortunately, there weren't any here this time, but if they do, they show up here, and then we know we need to figure out why a workstation's offline or patching is deferred for some reason. So I really want to get to this part because this is I think this is probably one of the most creative things that we're doing from a Bright Gauge standpoint, and this has been it's something that I think is understated in our environment. A lot of times we forget about it, but I think it's really impactful and it's had a huge difference for us. So we always tried to think about how to share with the team across the board for every position how we're doing on a client by client basis. And we thought about different things like utilization and billable ratios and realization rates and all kinds of different things like that. But those were really hard when we start. It's hard to correlate those to something that means a lot to everybody in the organization. But one thing we know is that everybody puts time into ConnectWise and everybody puts time on tickets. So what we try to do is take it from a financial metric back down to a time metric. So for all of our clients, on every 6 months, we take our client agreements and look at the dollars that contribute to managed services. So we have a bunch of line items on each agreement that contribute to managed services, but we come up with that aggregate dollar amount for the month that we call managed services. And we take that dollar amount and divide it by the ratio that we want to keep versus we want to spend on a client. So our profitability ratio. Then we divide it by our blended hourly rate for the whole team. So once we've divided both of those times, we come up with what's effectively a target hours. So this is the number of hours that we want to spend on a client. If we spend more hours than that, then our profitability is dropping. If we spend less hours than that, then we're probably not doing what we should for a client. So we have a gauge for target hours for each client in a 30-day window. And what we really try to do is once we have that number for a client, we're looking at keeping it within a 10% above or below band for that. And so Ken built this board with all of our clients on it. This is actually multiple pages here, but it shows every single client and for their particular individual targeted hours, how are they doing over the 30-day period? So we can quickly see where we're spending too much time on a client or not enough time on a client. So, are there any questions about that?
No, but we do have one other question that did come in. How do you track historical data if it's based on status? Wouldn't the status change to closed?
That must be. I'm trying to remember what. Do you know what that was related to? Which are we talking about? Something back here?
I believe it was the previous dashboard.
So this one, I think, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, this is current status of the tickets. And the numbers along the bottom are the age of that ticket at this particular time. So, I mean, we actually have a ticket that's out here that's it's kind of burnt color. So it's on hold for a year. So that's obviously something that's unusual. But this means that it's currently in an on hold status and the ticket's 364 days old. So I don't know that that's instant rush.
Well, this gauge is only showing tickets that are currently in an open status. So it's not just the status closed. It's any status that within the setup tables you set to indicate a closed ticket on the back end.
Gotcha. Um, Another question that's come in, it says, other than being Jay's breakage guru, what other roles does Ken play at the company?
So, she'll bitch all of them, right? So Ken is our data guru. He manages the data coming out of all of our systems, but he's on our operations team as well. So he also does some client facing stuff for a lot of our clients. One in particular, one large one, but he's uh, involved in a lot of things. Barely is on the operations team.
Awesome. And then another question, can you tell us the math on one more time for the company 30-day board?
Sure, sure. So it's really simple once you kind of get your head around it. But let's just take a theoretical example. So if let's say that I calculate that we're going to spend uh, 1,000, or we have a client that has $1,000 of their agreement that's attributable to managed services, right? And maybe I want to I want to so if I subtract out, well, let's say it's $1,100 and we subtract out $100 for tools. These numbers don't mean anything, but just to make it easy, we subtract out $100 for the cost of the tools that are going in that managed services, and I've got $1,000 left for profit and for hourly people cost. So let's say I want to achieve 50% margins on that. Then I'm going to take $500 and set it aside for profit. And I'm going to say $500 for uh, cost for managed services. Now that $500, let's just say our blended rate is I'll call it $50 an hour. That's a little high, but let's just say it was $50 an hour. Then I know I've got 10 hours of target time for that client for the month. So I know that we want I'm saying a blended, fully burdened hourly rate for the team. So that's, you know, sometimes our project engineers are a higher rate, and sometimes they contribute a little bit to services. And then we've got a lot of different people, but we blend that rate out over time to come up with a burdened all-in blended rate, and then divide the dollars by that to get back to hours. So, 500. I mentioned 500 hours divided by $50 an hour comes out to 10 hours. So 10 target hours for that particular client. Now, we would be acceptable. We would consider it acceptable to spend 11 hours, 10% more, or or 9 hours, 10% less. But when it gets to uh, 12 hours, then that's too much and it's going to turn red on here. When it gets to 8 hours, that's too little and it's going to turn blue on here, or green. Blue, I think, right? Yeah. So green is the
From a gauge construction perspective, Jay gives me the target hours for a client, and then well, there's a goal line that's going to come into it when we look at it just another way. You just go in and set color thresholds. Blue if it's below 15%, below 85% of target, and then red if it's over 115% of target.
Yeah, and so those percentages might change for you if depending on what your goals are and things like that, and your profit margins might change it. Your blended rate would definitely change it, things like that. But that's, and I'm happy if anybody wants to talk about that in more detail after the call or at another time. You're welcome to reach out to me. But that's kind of what we do, and the beauty of it is that it's quickly identifiable. It's something that all of our people understand. They understand. Oh yeah, I spent 6 hours on this particular client last week. I can understand why that contributed to a quarter of the time that we spend, and that's a big deal. That's what put them in the red or something like that. So it is I think universally understandable by our team, whereas realization rates and dollars of profit and things like that don't really translate as well or as easily. That makes sense. That's the one that I really wanted to focus on because I think it's the one that's probably had the biggest impact for us. When we look at this, we know one of two things has happened. Either over the last 30 days, something's happened in the client environment. Sometimes we find out that, oh, there was this project that got stuck in as a service ticket and created a bunch of service hours and it shouldn't have. Sometimes we can back that out and turn it back into a project and bill for it. But other times it's just a coaching moment and lessons learned. The other thing that happens at times is maybe there's an event that happens in the client environment, upgrade or a security incident or something like that drives hours up. But then the third thing that happens not insignificantly is that we find out that we've maybe priced the agreement wrong. There's something wrong with the agreement, and so our target hours are off. It's not the amount of work that we're doing; it's that our target hours are too low. So a lot of times this leads us to going back to clients and repricing the agreements. And there are times with some of our larger clients where if we're having a very open and transparent conversation, we'll share with them what our target hours and what they've done. And I think a lot of times they get that. They understand that we're in business for a profit. And if they're keeping us too busy, then that's not in their best interest or in our best interest. So it leads to some open and interesting conversations with clients. And there's just a second half to the bottom half of the page as well. So this kind of represents, as I mentioned before, we're kind of we have what I would say from an MSP standpoint is a smaller number of clients, but we go deep on them. So we have a lot of services and a lot of them that are beyond managed services as well. So this represents our full agreement clients. So any questions about any of that? So I'll just spin through a few more if that's all right. These are probably can go through a little bit more quickly, but just some weekly metrics that our team looks at. These are reports more than they are gauges, but tickets versus hours. To kind of look at whether there's increase in the size of the tickets or the amount of time it's taking us to handle tickets. This is the second half of that report. Breakdown of type of tickets for a particular client. So I guess Ken, this is a report that we do client facing, right?
Yeah, this is a client-facing weekly report that goes out that for a lot of our customers kind of informs the cadence of the weekly or biweekly conversation that the account manager is having with the point of contact with the client.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and as much as possible, our account managers are trying to hit these topics quickly, get off of them, and get to a strategic conversation with clients about what's next for them and what's going on in their business. But some of this stuff is just necessary to get through. So they, this report organizes it well for them. It gives them a quick and easy way to discuss it with clients. Usually there's more than 2 tickets for a particular client. So we also, are trying to be good stewards of our clients' environments and helping them with their budgeting. So we share with them warranties or warranties expiring and equipment that needs to be replaced as well. So they get this, every piece of equipment that we discover in a client environment goes into ConnectWise as a configuration. And then we manage that with an expiration date for the warranty as well. And a bit down at the bottom, you can see just a point about CSAT for the client. We put the CSAT score and then also comments that we've gotten from their end users, which are oftentimes very eye-opening. So business growth is the big thing for us, as I'm sure it is for everybody here. But we use a mix of kind of Sandler sales techniques and some homegrown approach to sales that's very educational based and interrogatory based. So we're always kind of digging in with clients. But this represents to what our sales look like at any given time and where we are with different things going on. So um, um, we track everything in terms of net new companies or opportunities for existing companies and opportunities. So we're constantly looking at what opportunities closed previously so that we know what's coming and the number of sales activities that are going on. The dollar amount that's represented by the open sales activities and the sales activities that are scheduled for the next week. I think these numbers are a little bit mixed up as well, and then they're kind of a breakdown of of what types of sales activities happened over the previous week. revenue closed by each of the sales reps, and the number of activities. So this is open opportunities by type. So I can't read that. Was it IT infrastructure's the biggest category for opportunities, and then revenue opportunities by each of our different salespeople. So you can see this is likely Bill, and these are probably Andy and Tommy and Andy, and then Megan, and I don't know who this is, but this just gives an idea of who's got the most opportunities that need to be moved forward. And then just a 6-month review of time for as I mentioned, this group of slides or boards, feed data into our employee scorecards that everybody gets every 6 months. There's several different metrics, and that top one is gross margin for the company as a whole. Everybody's got that as a KPI, and then there are other indicators on that come off of these boards. So certainly utilization breakdown of time, where people's time was spent, total time versus client service tickets and holiday time and different things like that. So this is broken down per person. So each person gets a view of that. And then a numerical breakdown of the same thing. So, or I'm sorry, this is this is per agent, the number of hours for a company. So where people have spent time over the last 6 months, which company they've been busiest with. So we make sure that we don't get only one person working for a particular client, that we have some cross training going on, things like that. And this is just total hours by agent over the 6-month period, and how they're broken down between project hours and service ticket hours and different things like that. And then ticket volume to go along with that as well. And percentage. This is just a percentage breakdown of the same thing as well. And then billable status. This is another metric on most people's scorecard is what their percentage of billability was over the course of the last 6 months. And CSAT review. So how you did on any ticket that you were attached to, whether it was positive, neutral, or negative. And then your individually by service technician, how their hours broke down by company, and how many project hours they had. The projects that they had, and how many hours that were on it, and then projects by company. So I know that spun through this last one's pretty quickly, but I'm just trying to keep us on track for time. But any other questions?
Yeah, actually, Jay, we have quite a few. So to start, is your target calculated by multiplying your target target minutes divided by month divided by endpoint for total client endpoints? And is that calculation built into Breakage, or do you need to hard code it?
So in our target hours that we calculate per client, it's not, we don't bring in the size of the client, like the number of endpoints or users or anything like that for that. It's purely just thinking we're trying to keep it as simple as possible for us, at least. Maybe something else works better for you, but for us, we wanted to just take the money the client's paying us, how much of that do we want to spend on the client? How much do we want to keep as profit? And of that money that we're going to spend on those clients, what does that translate to an hour? So for us, it's that simple. It's not a complicated conversation, but it does mean that the hourly counts are obviously, the targets are going to be different for each client. They're not standardized by per capita or anything like that. They're different numbers, but by having some boundaries on that, we can quickly tell if for that particular company, we're above or below. So I'm not sure if I'm answering that question, but for us, the user or device count doesn't come into the calculation for targets.
Awesome. Thanks,
And,
Jay. And I know
unfortunately, unfortunately, they don't automatically update the thresholds on the gauges. Those are manually set.
Yeah, and that's probably partly because of the way our agreements are set up. I think at some point we're going to try to rework our agreements so that our managed services line items on the agreements are more easily segregated, and we can in an automated way pull the dollar amounts. But right now we have to eyeball it on each agreement. But we only do that every 6 months, so it's not too bad.
awesome. And we'll do 2 more questions since we're at 12. And then we'll make sure to follow up with anyone else with any other questions that they might have. But there is one that says, this page is looking at the last 30 days. Do you have a dashboard that looks at the last year to determine the overall profitability for a given customer agreement? Or is that something you might use a report for rather than a dashboard?
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly right. I tend to go to the either the built-in ConnectWise reports, NPS and Manage. There's one for company profitability over whatever term you want. I use that a lot. I do a lot of building of our own reports in the report writer in ConnectWise. So for anything that's more like a year, I'm typically going to reporting more than I am break gauge.
Yeah, and there's a good reason for that. Usually, if it's something that we're going to track over the course of a year, we're going to do semi-annual or quarterly reports because you're constrained on how far you can go back on the data in ConnectWise Manage integration. So if you want the more robust data set, you can really only go back and capture about 7 months at this point.
Gotcha. Another question that we've had is, how do you articulate the non-direct facing hours spent with clients? For example, if you share the number of hours you're willing to spend on a direct service and they do a calculation and think that it's high, do you have a factor you apply for them? For each active hour, we spend X additional hours.
So I think what I'm assuming what you mean is that so like for example, account management or our non-ticket hours, we code those under managed services as well. So for us, the target hours represents everything that we want to be using for a client, except for if we have non-agreement covered time. So like for example, we don't cover for a lot of our clients, we don't cover the installation of new PCs or new servers or anything like that. That would all be their project time or billable, what we call change time. So those would be separated out from our target hours. But other than that, all the things that we consider managing the client, including account management or strategic business reviews or anything like that, we include in that time as well. I think that answers the question.
It does. Awesome. Well, any other questions that we have, we'll follow up with you guys after. I do want to say thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jay and Ken, for all of your insights. We really appreciate it today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Dominique. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.